Welcome back to Adulthood Friends. This is the discussion-based podcast where two former childhood acquaintances, now friends, discuss the things that adverb Josh.
Oh, you think I would have been ready for this?
You'd think after 60 episodes you'd figure this out.
You'd think I would. What about you? You got an adverb for us, Aya?
Unpreparedly. Is that a word?
God damn it. You'd have to ask one we have to look up right now.
Yeah, look it up.
Unpreparedly. Why do I feel like it's not? It is.
'Cause
No,
it is. No, it is?
I think it is.
Okay, unpreparedly. So since you're unprepared, and I feel a little unprepared, but
It
yeah.
It is a word.
Great. We all learned a new word today. So the things that unpreparedly matter.
Unpreparedly is your adverb of the week.
And I'm Aya.
I'm Josh.
And today for episode 60, woot woot.
60?
I know. Every time you reach
A multiple of 10.
Multiple of 10, that's the word, yeah. It's pretty exciting. So episode 60, we're talking about identity. So what is identity? Is identity something fixed or something you can change? And yeah, that's about it. Should we?
There's no other questions about identity?
Oh, God damn it.
Just two?
Well, I thought we usually do two. Do you have more?
We always do like 3 for this. We do 2 in the description.
Oh, right. Okay. All right. So I said 2. How about you give one since I gave the adverb? Huh.
How many identities can one have?
Okay. Good one. Say another one in case you want to think of.
You have multiple. We know you can have multiple identities. Is identity objective or subjective?
All right. That was the question, yeah, that you had. Okay. Yeah. All good questions. And should we just get into it now?
Let's just get into it.
Let's get into it. Okay.
I have a squeaky chair.
Oh, good. That makes up for my non-squeaky chair. My chair actually hurts my back.
Really?
I'm very old these days. Yeah.
Looks nice.
Thanks. It looks nice, but it's bullshit. Like I got up and I was sitting here for like an hour or two one day, and I got up and I was like an old lady for the rest of the day. I was like groaning every time I had to get up because I was like, my back hurts so much. So it might also be the way I'm sitting.
And we're back.
Oh, and we're back. Whoopsie. And we're back.
It's
so good to be back.
Oh, we can switch it up. It's episode 60.
I stole it. I stole your line. Do you remember when you stole? We've already talked about this, haven't we? When you stole Sarah Dina's line in
oh my God.
first grade. Do you remember that?
I do. I
feel like we have talked about this.
And that's probably one of the reasons I am who I am today.
Oh,
my identity is probably wrapped up in the thing I did in grade 1.
Good segue. I feel like we're switching roles a lot today. Now you're the segue queen.
Oh, you think I own segue? Yeah. I segue all the time.
Do I just not appreciate it as much as you appreciate my segues?
You just didn't call me the segue king. You know what I mean?
Oh.
I called you the segue queen.
Well, why am I queen and you're king? That's stupid.
Is that?
I want to be king. Isn't king best?
Is it?
I think king is the top.
Only in a patriarchal system.
What non-patriarchal system has kings and queens?
A matriarchal system.
Which one? Name one.
I don't know. The Amazonian. I don't know. Is that real? I don't think so.
I think you're talking about mythical. You know what?
I wasn't prepared to talk about that. I'll be honest. When I thought we were going to talk about identity, I thought we were going to get into identity, but maybe that's part of identity.
No, you're right.
Amazonian princesses and Wonder Woman and.
Well, maybe whether or not you want to be a king or a queen is part of identity.
Yes, queen.
Cool. So,
okay, not even a little. Your face.
No. You know what? It's funny. That's originally from Broad City, right? Great show.
I don't know. I don't even know.
Have you never seen it? You don't watch enough TV, Josh.
Oh my God.
For someone who does film, I don't think you watch enough TV. Oh my God. Can I tell you about a really good show that I watched?
Yes.
Really quickly. Jury Duty. Do you know about this?
Oh, I know, but I've seen the first 2 episodes of Jury Duty. I liked it a lot.
Yeah,
it's very good.
Okay.
James Marsden.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's so
I love
good.
the concept of that show.
Amazing. Yeah.
Right. Because it's for anyone who doesn't know, the whole show, it's like about a bunch of people on jury duty, and everybody's an actor except for one guy.
Yeah.
And he doesn't know that everybody else around him is an actor. He just
thinks they're filming a documentary on jury duty. So that's why he's doing all the little.
Yeah, and he just thinks he's there for jury duty.
And a documentary.
And then like James Marsden is there as James Marsden. You remember Cyclops from X-Men? It's really funny because he's playing like a heightened version of James Marsden.
It's kind of like he's playing kind of an asshole. It's hilarious. Like he's playing like a really,
Yeah.
oh, I'm such a celebrity. People are following me and all this stuff. Yeah, it's pretty funny.
I want to watch the rest of it, but from what
Yeah.
I have seen, like it's very fun to watch.
It's fascinating.
This guy is like a national treasure, and everyone's like, we need to protect him.
Like it's just so interesting to watch this guy, like how he reacts to all these like weird situations that are like a little larger than life. But anyways, it's very interesting.
I've never seen a show that combines fiction and nonfiction's like reality with
Right.
fiction like that before. It's kind of cool.
They kind of made it an actual reality show for this guy because you see how someone actually reacts.
Yeah, it's all.
Although I guess he still knows he's being filmed, but there are more. Some of the things
still not a
you'll see at
reality.
the end, like how they do it, but some things are secret cameras that he doesn't know about.
Yeah,
but
it's also, yes, it's in that sense, yes, but it's the idea that everybody around him is an actor with lines, or not necessarily with lines. They're improvising a lot, but
they do rehearse first.
That's crazy.
Like it's a rehearsed thing. Yeah, it is crazy. Anyways, highly recommended. Okay, let's get into identity. I'm sorry. So I don't know. Usually we do.
You're the one who has to
first.
Go at some point.
I know, but I also want to talk about things. We should get to identity though, because it is a big topic. So much so that I think I felt a little scared of it.
For a long time, we talked about doing this, right?
We did. Yeah, we did. But like,
why are we so scared?
I think of identity as a huge thing. Because you know what? I think maybe because like everyone talks about it.
And this is going to be a 1-part episode. This is not going to be a 2-part
episode.
No,
it's not a 2-parter. It's a 1-part. So
we're challenging ourselves.
Let's just point out that we're just touching on it. And like there's so many different things that you could study. I think because I was exposed to a lot of like identity stuff in academia, to me it seems like something that people can write multiple theses or theses. I don't know. Theses
about
essays or that. Yeah. So I just feel like it's a big topic, but maybe I'm making it scarier than it is. We do talk about it indirectly.
It's interesting. The last episode that we did on deliberate doubt, identity came up, and it seems that we can't help but talk about it in other topics anyway. So we might as well just dive headfirst into it.
It's such a big topic. Yeah.
And we were waiting. We're like, maybe we should bring somebody else on with us. They could talk a lot about identity, but come on, this is our podcast. This
is our podcast. Tell everybody else to go away. No.
Do we need to bring on an expert on identity? Come on, this is like you and me. Let's talk about identity here. We're experts.
We're all experts on our own identities.
No, we're not. I don't know shit about my own identity.
Probably not. Yeah. Well,
that's half true.
Well, how about we start with what is identity?
What is identity?
So, what is identity?
I have an answer for you, or are you going to answer that?
You do? Great. Yeah, you answer it. So I'm not just answering my own question.
Just, thinking right now of a definition that's springing into my brain out of nowhere.
Yeah, totally off the cuff.
I think that identity is a multifaceted concept that encompasses how individuals perceive themselves and how they're perceived by others.
Interesting.
And it can be understood from various perspectives. Psychological, sociological, philosophical, and more.
Exactly. So it's a big topic, see? And that was a great definition.
I can't believe I just pulled that out of thin air.
I wish I could define things so perfectly with nothing written down.
Yeah. Or no ChatGPT or anything.
Yeah, I knew it was ChatGPT. All right. Well, hey, if it's a good definition.
What's your definition? Is it along those lines?
It was actually exactly the same.
How could it be exactly the same? Did you also look it up on, is it where ChatGPT pulled it from?
I wrote it. I said, hey, ChatGPT, when Josh Lippman asks this question, can you give him this answer? And ChatGPT was like, yeah, sure, whatever. I don't care. And then it did. So that's how we both have the same one, because I sent you.
I bet it actually responded that way too. Yeah, sure, whatever. I don't care. Because it's getting more, it knows how to respond to you.
Yeah, it does. It's like, I know what this girl wants to hear. There we go. Yeah, sure, whatever. Who cares? Yeah. So I think that's a great definition. I have nothing to add to that, because I think it encompasses how many different ways you can approach identity. You can approach it from, a physical okay, so I have a list of things that are amalgamated into identity. So memories, experiences, values, choices, relationships, external characteristics like height, race, socioeconomic class, etc., political opinions, moral attitudes, religious beliefs, gender and sexuality. So all of those things are part of identity, which is why I think it's a huge topic, because each of those things is already huge, right?
So I have here a list of kind of categories that maybe those fall into.
Maybe. Okay.
So for example, the categories I have here are personal identity, social identity, cultural identity, gender identity, professional identity, and also digital or online identity. So some of those, I think, like you're saying, those fall under, I guess like a religious identity could fall under your, well, I guess that doesn't, that's more under your personal identity, right? Cultural is more
but we're mainly talking about personal identity, but you're right. Like, so there are different ways to look at it, but I think the important thing is that identity is how we see ourselves and how
that's not true.
Others perceive.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were done. I thought you had a period.
No, I think there are different ways of describing, of categorizing.
Because it's both of those things.
It's both.
It's how we see ourselves and how other people see us.
Yeah.
And we can talk about what happens when those things are in conflict.
Right.
Because you may perceive yourself one way.
Yeah, like you think that you're 6 feet tall.
Oh my God, I am.
And I beg to differ.
What do you mean you beg to? It's just rude.
No, we were talking about, so when we asked the question, subjective versus objective, you said you're objectively 6 feet tall, and I just don't remember that. I just thought you were like a more average height for some reason.
What? It's the worst thing about being like, you know, frustrating it is to be tall and people not think you're tall. No, I wasn't done my sentence. No, it's great to be tall.
I wish I wasn't 6. I'm sure you clean up on Tinder and the like.
I did, not on Tinder.
Pre your girlfriend, obviously.
Didn't hurt, I'll be honest. But it's frustrating because a lot of people, first of all, I hunch a lot. Also, my torso is like bigger than from my legs down.
Oh, you got like short little legs?
I don't have short legs.
You got like stumpy legs. You're like a corgi.
But I think that the ratio is off, which is so mean. It's like your inner bully is coming out. Is that how you identify, or is that how other people identify you as a bully?
Both.
Anyways, as I was saying.
I'm self-aware. I'm self-aware enough to know that I'm a bully. I bully with love. I bully with affection.
Is that a thing?
It is now.
Do you abuse with love and affection? I hurt you because I love you.
Okay, well, when you put it that way, there's a difference between like light bullying and abuse.
Oh, light bullying.
Yeah.
Really?
Like teasing.
Then why am I so sad right now? I'm just kidding.
Oh, Josh, but are you actually?
No, I'm okay. I'm fine.
But does it hurt your feelings when I bully? But you know that I don't.
No, everyone likes being told they have short, stumpy legs, Aya. But no, but sorry, I don't. Though. Josh. I'm fine. I have decent legs. Although my girlfriend will often be like, "Josh, you can't wear shorts that are that long because it looks like you have no legs."
So, you know what? I think it's important that you're sharing this because now all the stumpy-legged men will feel like emboldened. And
I'm not stumpy-legged though.
I'm not the only stumpy-legged man.
I just have a slightly longer torso,
right?
And it makes me look like I'm not as tall as I am because I think I think longer legs makes you look taller.
Do I look tall? I have much like my torso is disproportionately short. I look tall.
Yes, you look taller.
Oh, amazing!
It's like a fact. You look taller with longer legs, and you don't look taller with a longer torso. I have to stand up very straight, all this stuff, and I don't do that. So yeah, I am 6 feet. To be fair, it depends on what time of the day. Sometimes I'm 5'11" and like 3/4.
And how you style your hair and stuff.
In the morning, I'm like 6 feet.
Right.
You know.
So you do hunch. Yeah. You need to do yoga or something. Then.
Okay.
How are your health problems, by the way? I should have asked you that personally.
I went to do an MRI yesterday with contrast.
Oh, yeah? Yeah?
Yeah. And
Oh, you told me this.
Yeah, I did I have a cyst in my left kidney, a baseball-sized cyst.
Oh, man.
That they got to classify it and find out.
Baseball? That's huge.
Yeah, it's pretty big. And they need to find out whether it's cancerous and what I should do, whether it should be removed, probably, or how it should be removed.
This might be our last episode.
Oh my God.
Do you identify as an alive person?
At least everybody knows what I think about everything now.
Yeah, you did say that you wanted this in case you died.
Exactly.
I hope you don't die. I feel like I would be sad. See, I'm nice too.
It's so nice that you hope I don't die.
Yeah, isn't that nice? Yeah, okay.
When I was in the MRI, this is kind of funny. They asked me if I wanted to listen to music. It makes like a really loud thumping sound the whole time. It helps to have earplugs in or to listen to music. And I was like, can I listen to a podcast? And they're like, sure. And they're like, well, what podcast would you like to listen to? I said, there's this great podcast. It's called Adulthood Friends.
Oh my God.
The reason I wanted to listen to the last episode is I had edited it and I wanted to see if it was working all right.
Yeah. Was it?
Yes, it sounded great.
Right.
But when I was done in the MRI, after like 30 something minutes, they were like, what's this podcast about? And I realized that they were listening to it the whole time that I was listening to it in the MRI, and they were really into the podcast. And I was like, oh, and then I thought I had to explain the reason I'm listening to myself is not just because I'm a narcissist, but I was trying to see if everything sounded okay after my editing job. And then they were like, oh, that was you?
Oh, man.
And I shouldn't have said anything because then now I definitely sounded like a narcissist.
Yeah. That's funny.
But they seem to really like the
Oh,
podcast.
that's
So
nice. We got 2 more
the
fans.
healthcare professionals
Yeah.
conducting my MRI.
You should get them, see how much can you pay them to just get everyone to listen, tell them to get everyone to listen to Adulthood Friends while they're in MRIs. We'll like quadruple our listenership. I don't actually.
Just for MRIs? I don't know if we will.
Just MRIs. Yeah.
You mean if they just play it in MRIs?
Yeah, they play it in people's MRIs.
That's a good idea. I mean, I don't think we had to go out of my way to ask to like, I think most people don't play anything in MRIs.
Oh, why did you get to?
I don't know. They asked me if I wanted music, but it's only because we were talking about the earplugs for a while in my ears and whether they were doing a good enough job.
Okay.
And then they're like, well, you could listen to music.
All right.
This isn't about identity.
I already heard that story, so it's hard for me to express any kind of emotion.
You can always pretend for the podcast, Aya, but you're so honest.
What? Yeah. No, part of my identity is that I consider myself to be an authentic person. So if I lie about my emotions now, I have to I feel this icky feeling like, the way I think and the way I'm acting are different. So,
well, let me ask you something.
Yeah. What's up?
Well, I have 2 questions.
Yeah.
One is going to be, how do you identify yourself? Like, what do you feel is part of your identity?
Yeah.
And 2, has that identity been challenged? And what happens? What do you feel when that identity is challenged, if it is?
I mean, my identity is challenged constantly. I feel like we start identifying ourselves as something when we're younger. And as we grow up, we either keep certain things or we realize, oh, other people identify me this way. And do I agree with that or not? And if I do agree with it, maybe I'll kind of lean into it. And if I don't, then maybe I'll specifically kind of reject that part so that they don't think that I'm like that.
Do you identify as a bully because other people identified you that way? Or is that just naturally something and then did you lean into it if so?
Okay, everybody relax. No, I think being identified as a bully externally was a bit problematic for me because then I'm like, oh, people are going to think I'm mean. But so you thinking I'm a bully is actually hilarious for some people who know me as super nice and so apologetic for everything.
I don't really think that you're a bully today.
Well, but I know you're kidding, but there are some people who think I'm very meek and oh, Aya's so sweet, and Aya's I've heard that before, and I'm like, that's confusing because my friend Josh and all these people think I'm kind of an asshole. Why
can't you be all these things?
Well, and I am.
We're different people in different contexts.
Exactly, we're different people in different contexts. I think I do have a sharper, sense of humor. Sharp as in kind of mean sometimes.
A little edge.
So I have to watch it, but an edge. Yes, I have an edge sometimes, but I also don't actually want to hurt anybody. So. And I know that I have. So sometimes I'm overcorrecting. So I think I overcorrect with new people that I don't know yet.
So you identify as a sweet person, an authentic person and a sweet person. You don't identify as someone who's mean, but you have a mean-spirited sense of humor sometimes, but you don't really want to hurt anybody with that. You just think it's funny.
I think I recognize that I can have a mean streak, but I don't like it. So I push against it. You know what I mean?
You don't like it. Is it part of your identity and you don't want it to be?
I guess so. Yeah, I think it is part of my identity.
So do you think you can change that? Can you change that aspect of you and not identify with it? Or does it cause cognitive dissonance when you try to?
I guess, I don't know. I feel is this therapy? Feels fun.
Yeah, that's what we do here.
That's what we do. I don't know. There was a lot to that question. I feel like it's part that I don't know. I probably have some cognitive dissonance because it's well, how could I be that person that I was as a kid? But I know that it comes from my own. I know that being mean comes from either my own insecurities, my idea that humor is funny at someone's expense sometimes, which it is. Sometimes it's funny. Sometimes my joke's about you being not 6 feet tall. Hilarious. I think that's
very funny. Yeah, it's objectively
funny. It's objectively funny. So, but that's humor. I think as long as it's humorous and no one's actually hurt, it's okay. So yes, some aspects of being a bit meaner have incorporated into my identity because I've already gone through the cognitive dissonance. That's a good question. Yeah, cognitive dissonance is an important one because I had it and I feel like I've kind of gone through, or maybe it's what I'm feeling right now and why I can't answer your question clearly.
Well, if somebody is hurt by something that you said as a joke, but you didn't intend to hurt them, are you actually mean, or are they, is that on them? Does that affect
it's not on them. it just because I didn't intend to hurt them doesn't mean that.
But that doesn't mean that
like if I didn't intend to hurt someone.
But does that mean that you're?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Because you identify as someone who is not.
Well, if someone says
who's
to
actually
me,
a sweet person. So if you ended up hurting somebody as a sweet,
I don't know if I identify. I'd say other people say that I'm sweet. I don't know that I'm sweet.
Okay? Oh, so you don't actually feel what other people identify you as?
I think I like to think that I'm nice, but I recognize that I'm probably not always nice.
So you identify as someone who intends to be nice and is generally a nice person with a bit of a mean streak in terms of humor.
There you go.
I guess the question I'm asking is, let's find out what this identity is and whether or not there's any conflicts in how you perceive yourself or others do and reality.
I think you're going to like trigger an identity crisis here, right here on the podcast.
Identity crisis.
Well, enough about me. Let's talk about you, Josh.
Why?
I don't know, because
you know what?
It feels like a lot of talking about me.
I was talking to a friend the other day, and was it because of him? Like, he told me that I hung out with these friends of his before. He introduced me to them, and he said that they found that in that interaction, I didn't ask them a lot of questions.
Oh.
And I was talking more about myself, and that made me feel horrible.
Oh, because so now you're overcompensating because you don't want to be seen. You don't want to feel that you are a person who talks about themselves.
Sometimes we can misattribute things in our identity. Like we can think that's like we're not correct about what the identity is, and we can try to be more correct about it. Like if I think about it, I think the real thing is that I get really excited about things.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's about things I like, or maybe a show I watch, or it might be something that I'm working on or doing, and I'm very passionate about filmmaking, for example. And I'll end up going on about that with people. But I also am curious about other people. And the fact that I was perceived that way does conflict with my own sense of identity as someone who's curious and likes to learn about others. So that caused me a little bit of, I guess, a small identity crisis when that happened.
Right. I think that kind of brings up a good point. I think we can feel different. We feel our identity to be different around different people. So for example, like a religious one, and I'll bring it back to yours as well, but like I always felt more Jewish around my not Jewish friends because I was the Jew. Like, contrast. Whereas when I'm around a bunch of Jewish people, I'm like, ugh, I hate this. Like, I don't want to keep whatever. I don't want to pray. Or well,
if you go to Israel, like, who are you? Yeah. But here you're a Jew.
Right. Yeah. So just like how it can shift a bit based on who you're around and how you identify in relation to them. And I think it can be the same with like
being. So identity is relational, it's social.
It's relational. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think like the whole being nice or being mean thing, like certain people, I just am different around people that I don't know as well, or around people. Are you raising your hand? Aw, Josh, it's so cute. So, okay. And coming back, you have something to say. Okay,
I have a question.
Okay.
Would you say that identity is fluid then?
I don't want to say fluid. I don't think it's like, whoop, whoop, whoop. I just think no, I don't know.
If it shifts around different people in different contexts and situations, isn't it somewhat fluid?
I mean, I would say changeable. I wouldn't say maybe that's just semantics. I guess it can be. Some aspects of identity can be fluid, but I don't think everything is. Like, you're not 6 feet sometimes, and well, I guess you are.
Actually, I am in the morning, I think.
Okay, but like
we change height a little bit during the days, so I guess that identity is objectively fluid.
I mean, you're white, but like, are you as white as other people?
Well, here's a question, and actually one that I feel very unsure about this, and I get a little bit of a crisis every time it happens. I don't know if anybody else can relate, but every time I have to fill out a form that asks me about my identity, I panic a little bit for a variety of reasons. And it happens a lot with me because I'm often submitting my films to festivals, and they all want to know who I am, my identity. And it's a big deal nowadays, your identity.
Yeah.
And let's also talk soon about identity politics, if we may.
I knew you were going to.
Oh, you knew I was going
to. I told you this is a huge topic. Yeah.
It's a huge topic, but maybe we'll come back to it in different ways in other topics.
So do you check Caucasian or do you check other? I don't like checking. I check other if I don't have to fill in details about other. Or sometimes like Middle Eastern if they have like options for that. Or like,
well, you actually are.
I'm like, I don't fucking know. Yeah.
You actually are half Sephardic. Like you have a Middle Eastern-y side to you that isn't white.
Right. Like, where are your parents from? I don't remember. I know your mom.
Their backgrounds are. Oh, there's your cat. Your cat's really cute.
Oh, hey, kitty. Yeah, she's the cutest.
They're Russian and Polish and Yugoslavian are the backgrounds.
Oh, okay. I mean, I've got Russian and Polish in there too. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's quite a visually white background.
Right.
But also my family was specifically slaughtered for not being white.
Right.
For being considered not white. You know, that was Hitler went out of his way to be like, you're not white.
Right.
That's part of my identity. I grew up not feeling that I was white. But, you know, especially nowadays, as we talk about white privilege and everything, you know, I have white privilege because I'm visibly white.
It's an invisible minority. Like, we're not visible, right? Like,
my real frustration is that what they're asking on the form isn't, in my opinion, what they mean on the form. So they're asking, like, are you white? Are you Black? Are you Hispanic? Are you Indigenous? Are you other?
Yeah.
And I feel like the answer is other because I don't feel like I'm white. But what they mean is, do you get white privilege for being visually white? So I often would answer white.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll give me more than one option and I'll write white and other.
Right.
I rarely write just other, but I've also realized that in my industry, it's not helpful for me to say white anymore. Like, it's not that there's less opportunities for white people. It's that there's always been so many opportunities for white people that they want to give opportunities to other people. But just like on a personal sense, like, that's not helpful for me right now to point out that I'm white. So that's oftentimes I panic there. I'm like, I want to be honest.
Yeah.
But like, what do I consider here? And I feel like a lot of people have this issue when people want to put them in a box. Like, are you Black? Are you African American? And they're like, well, my family's not from Africa, but I am a Black American, but they didn't ask that.
Yeah.
But is that what they meant?
Right.
You know, and there's a lot of, like, identity can be a very complex thing, especially when it comes to cultural identity and ethnicity. So that kind of stuff, I mean, as Jews, we have a weird relationship with that throughout history, where we've always kind of been, I guess, a hidden minority, unless our noses give us away. But
good one. Yeah, no, it's a classic.
I mean, it's also not entirely untrue. Did you hear about that whole issue with Bradley Cooper?
No.
Playing Leonard Bernstein?
Oh, yeah, that's dumb. Just because they added, like, Leonard Bernstein has a big nose. It's okay for him to have, like,
so they gave him a prosthetic nose.
Of course.
Yeah.
They're like, is that Jew face? That's the racist part.
To ask if it's Jew face, to be
saying that it's Jew face. Fuck you. It's Leonard Bernstein face.
You and I don't particularly have huge noses, I don't think.
I mean, I have a big-ish, like, I don't have a small nose, but I don't think I have a
normal,
stereotypically Jewish.
Yeah.
Stereotypically large Jewish nose. Yeah. And neither do you.
I mean, you know why Jews have big noses, right?
All the money sniffing? I don't know. What is it?
Because air is free.
Oh, I've heard that one. Yeah. I blocked it out. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, it's bad. Great. It's bad not because it's like super offensive, but because it's just not a good joke.
It's just a bad joke. I don't know why it's a bad joke, because it's offensive. No, isn't that why it's bad?
I guess, but it's just kind of a dumb joke. Like, it's the most base level of, they like free things and air is free.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, my favorite is a Jew with a boner walks into a wall, and what does he say?
Ow, my nose.
Ow, my nose. That one's funnier. That's a funnier joke.
Maybe he just has really bad posture.
Overanalyzing Jew boner jokes.
Yeah. Maybe he was over circumcised.
Oh my God.
Oh.
Over circumcised?
Yeah, like
ooh.
Like they
I had to think about that for a second.
Yeah, like castrated.
This is funny,
not funny,
but
Josh.
Also I just suddenly empathized with that for no reason whatsoever. And now
Yeah.
I'm like, ooh,
men in penile pain. You guys are always like, oh, it hurts. Boo-hoo.
It's just so easy to, I mean, that's what women have to understand. It's so easy to hurt men.
I know.
It's so easy. That's why men are so insecure about being strong.
It's fun. Yeah, because they're not.
Yeah.
Well, like, yeah. Okay, let's focus here.
So back to
we were saying. So
I was saying filling out forms causes a little bit of a panic.
Right. For sure.
And I do that all the time when, submitting to film festivals and whatnot.
Yeah.
That's one type of identity. And I guess that falls under,
I would say falls
my personal and cultural identity. Personal
and cultural, and some people might say, but Jewish is religion. And
it's
that's true, but it's an
ethno-religious.
Wow. Yeah. You had that ready. Have we talked about this already?
We have, and I have.
Or you just know about this? Okay.
Outside of this, but I think you and I have talked about this.
I thought I was going to be impressive with my term, but yes, it's ethno.
No, we brought this up on the podcast, I believe, before.
Oh, okay. I'm actually learning from this podcast.
Oh, yeah? What did you learn?
Oh, yeah. Ethno-religious, apparently.
Oh, you just learned that? You relearned that?
No, I was ready with it, but apparently we've talked about it before, and that must have been where I learned it from.
Maybe. I don't think I taught you. I think I give you more credit.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, Judaism is an ethno-religious group, and that's, for the record, that's very confusing to everybody, including Jews. But to be fair, I get a little frustrated with Jews who get frustrated with other people not understanding what it means to be a Jew, only because what it means to be a Jew is such a confusing thing.
Oh, yeah.
To non-Jews especially, and even to Jews who can't express that very well. Because is it a bloodline thing? Yeah. Is it a religion? Yeah. Is it a culture? Yeah. It's kind of all of those things. It's a people, right? And you can relate to that people in one or all of those ways.
Yeah.
So I understand, but other people don't really understand that. And I think it's kind of on us to explain and express that to other people who then build worldviews about, different groups and religions and cultures, not understanding that you can have an ethno-religious group.
It's very understanding of you.
So it's upon us
for sure
to explain that. But because then that is part of my identity. I am Jewish and you are Jewish. But it may not mean the same thing, everybody who says that they're Jewish, just because you say you are.
It definitely doesn't.
Like, what is it?
What
does it mean to you?
No, I don't want to talk about
That's kind of what we knew we were going to get into.
No, I thought we were going to talk about identity in general.
Well, we got into this a little bit.
My identity.
Oh, yeah, we're going to talk about your identity.
Well, but what about things like the things that we do? Like a big part. So let's not just focus.
So let's just ignore your question, Josh, about your Jewish identity.
Let's put a pin in your question, and I promise we'll come back.
Okay.
But I would like to say that there are other parts of identity.
We also talked about it a bit last time.
Yeah, we did. So we've already covered it.
No, we didn't. We didn't fully cover it.
But like,
it's tough. It's tough.
What about things like the things that we do? So, for example, you are a filmmaker, as you've pointed out, I think maybe at least once or twice.
Well, this time it was you.
This time it was me.
I did bring up submitting to festivals, so I inferred my identity.
You did, but that's okay.
I identify as a filmmaker, yes.
For sure. And if someone told you, Josh, no more, you're not allowed to make any films, you will have zero opportunities, it's all done, and you can't write either.
Okay, you know what? This brings up a conversation I just had.
Really?
Yes.
Wow, it's so topical.
Yeah, so let me see if I can remember this correctly. I was writing that TV show that I've been working on for some years, Black Sheep, with my friend Jacob, who came on for gun violence.
Oh, I know him now. Yeah.
Yeah, now you know Jacob. And Tamar, maybe one day you'll know her too. And it's interesting. We're there to like beat board out the episode of this show.
Beat board. Yeah.
I know you love the word beat board.
I think it's funny.
You can hear Aya say beat board, the beatbox beat board in our writing episode, I think.
Beat board. Oh, is it? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. We were there to discuss story, but somehow we always get into talking about other things.
Right.
And we ended up talking about identity a little bit in the sense that I guess we were talking about elitism a little bit and how I was frustrated with the elitism of people saying, kind of gatekeeping what it means to be certain types of artists, like a writer or an actor. And, Jacob went to school for writing, and I personally felt there was some elitism in that. You might even say that there is for him because he believes there's a certain level to be at to consider oneself a writer. And Tamar actually agrees in a sense that, as an actor, she believes that you can't just go around calling yourself an actor.
Right.
And I said, if you do that thing, then you can consider yourself that thing.
Right.
Like you can identify as that thing. And I said, for example, I identify as an actor. And she's like, really, Josh, you're an actor? Okay. I was like, first of all, I felt like my identity was attacked. It's not my entire identity. But before I went into filmmaking, before I went into neuroscience and identified as someone who does that, I was acting. You remember back in high school, I think we were in drama class together. I was acting since I was in elementary school. I remember playing Theseus in A Midsummer Night's Dream.
Oh, yeah. Who did I play in that? I was trying to remember.
Who did you play? I remember like Michael played Oberon. Who did you play?
Who played Puck? Did I play Puck or did I play something else?
Maybe you did. I don't know.
Why don't I remember and I expect you to? Anyways, it doesn't matter. It's not a big part of my identity.
Look, I'm self-focused here. I remember me.
I know. I'm so sorry. I interrupted to talk about myself. Continue.
No, please do. I don't want to keep talking about myself. You know how much that's affecting me now.
I mean, I just... can I say that I was going to say that before about you, like, because I know you so well. I know that when you excitedly talk about something, it's because you have like this almost childlike excitement and enthusiasm. I guess those are synonyms. You have this childlike enthusiasm about life and the things that are happening. And it is about other people too, but it's just like you don't have room for all the things at once. You can't be sharing the stuff that you want to tell and ask about someone else at the same time. That's what and I know that because I know you.
I appreciate that you say that because that makes me feel better. But I think I have that insecurity and fear, and I always have, because I can recognize myself talking about myself, like right now, for example.
Yeah.
And I made a movie about that. If you remember, I made a movie called Nick the Narcissist.
Oh, I saw that one.
Yes, you did. It's part of the Cluster B quadrilogy.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And in that movie, the guy is afraid
People
constantly.
Keep saying that he's a narcissist.
Yeah, well, his girlfriend calls him a narcissist, and he's like asking for, am I a narcissist? And they're like, yeah.
Yeah.
And he starts getting convinced that he is, and he just leans into it. He's like, I guess I'm a narcissist now. And, there's a little bit of a twist on that later, but whether that's the case, which I won't spoil.
Yeah. Sorry, but I didn't mean to interrupt. So you were talking about your identity as an actor.
Well, I was just saying that I did identify as that.
Played Oberon or Theseus.
Yeah, I identified as that. And then when I went into filmmaking, it was because it kind of encompassed even more of the elements of storytelling and building that I love. And you have more kind of control over the overall, I don't want to say product of the story. I love building the story and not just being a part of the story, but I do love acting. I've always loved it. And part of the reason I haven't done it as much lately is I think we've talked about this. I'm not in love with like myself physically. And I think when I put myself out there that way, I get very self-conscious of that. And so I've done that less. Although I did do that in Therapists, which you saw. I act in that movie.
I did see that. Yeah.
In fact, I act in it along with Tamar.
Right.
And with Jacob. We're all in that movie. But Jacob doesn't consider himself an actor, although he's interested in doing more. Ethan considers herself an actor, right? An actress. And she's intent on pursuing that. And she is an actress. And Tamar considers her an actress, but Tamar didn't consider me an actor. And even with the fact that I've probably done more than Ethan and Jacob and a number of others, I've acted in a lot of projects, a lot of movies. I was a co-lead in a feature. It never got released, but I did it. But then why am I not an actor? Is it about whether I identify myself that way? Is it because I didn't tell people enough that I feel that way?
Right.
So now that I told her I do feel that way, she's like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
She's like, you're not an actor. I said, what would it take for me to be an actor? She's like, you got to be acting. I was like, I just did, like recently.
Yeah, that's a good point. I wouldn't have thought of that.
She's like, yeah, but you're not doing it right. I'm like, do I have to be acting right now, this very moment? I mean, you're not acting right now, this very moment, are you? She's like, well, do you intend on becoming an actor? I said, I'd love to continue acting and that being one of the things that I do. And they were very confused about it. And it just came down to this idea of how we identify others and how kind of strict we can be about it. And whether or not we identify others with what we see in our minds about them and how they identify themselves.
Yeah. No, and I think part of that, at least in your case, is because you are so many other things. I feel like probably in that case, it was more like, how can you be an actor? You're a filmmaker, a writer, a poet, whatever, like you're all these things.
Am I a poet? Am I a poet because I've written a poetry book?
I think you're a poet. You published a poetry book.
But I don't go around telling people I'm a poet. I don't write it in my biography.
But you are. I would say you're a poet. If you said I'm a poet, I'd be like, sure, why not?
I appreciate that. So you see me as a poet, but I haven't gone around telling people I'm a poet. It's interesting. I identify more as an actor than a poet, but I have written a poetry book and I've acted, but I identify with one more than the other.
And is that because you want to pursue acting more than you want to pursue poetry? Like you did the poetry book and you're like, done. So maybe you were a poet and you want to be an actor.
I'm writing another poetry book right now.
So you're a poet, dude. Like, sorry, you're also a poet or maybe that just falls under writer for you.
I think that I probably am a poet, but again, we're talking about how I identify versus other people. I do think that now we're falling into a little bit. Do we believe and take seriously other people's self-identities? Right. And we don't want to go into that. I think that's a whole other topic. There's the trans rights issues and all that fall under that, right? As well, how people identify and whether we follow people's self-identities or not, right? Or do we do it sometimes and not other times? Like if someone identifies as a chair, are we just like, no, you're not?
No, well, that's so extreme though. But like if someone says, I identify as this gender, I'll be like, sure.
I agree. I agree.
Okay.
I'm saying I would do that, but then I wouldn't do that if someone said they were a chair, which is interesting. I'm just saying, like,
I mean, I don't mind if someone wants to be a chair, go for it. You want to be a chair? Like, that's not a fun life, but sure.
I'm saying, would you identify them as that?
Sure.
You would. Okay.
If someone told me, I would like for you to refer to me as a chair, I'd be like, if that's what you want.
Not refer to you.
Like, sure.
Not refer to you as a chair. identify you as a chair.
Well, they can't change how I see them.
But that's a bit more of an objective reality. We've talked about, again, we don't want to go into it too much, but gender identity is a social construct. And we can say, hey, you know what? That is something I can identify you as that.
But they're not doing chair things. Mm-hmm. Like, can I sit on them? How are they a chair then?
Well, then, depending on how we identify someone as, does that change how we also interact with them?
Yeah, it does.
It's like, I will identify you as a chair, but then I'm going to sit on you.
But I'm going to sit on you. Yeah, exactly. Be prepared.
By the way, I hope I wasn't being offensive in what I just said right there. What I'm trying to say is that I do differentiate between identifying oneself as a chair and a gender identity, which is
I could just see the headline, Josh. Burgeoning filmmaker and actor at the cusp of a breakthrough role condenses the trans rights issue into, are you a chair? No. That's refers to trans people as people identifying themselves as chairs.
No,
I'm saying this far from getting canceled.
I'm saying
Josh.
There's more legitimacy in gender identity. We differentiate that from just identifying as literally anything.
No, I know.
I'm saying other people will accept your identity, your gender identity, but we won't accept your identity as an inanimate object. We won't accept your identity. I mean, some people will. Some people
unless
will
you're
say,
like fully doing that constantly. I'll be like, sure, be a chair.
Some people say, yes, you are a cloud, and identify you as a cloud.
That's a bit of a stretch. I don't think anybody can be a cloud.
Wait, why is a cloud... Wait a second. Why is a cloud less than a chair?
Because a person could be a chair. Haven't you ever seen that Borat? Or it's not Borat, it's Bruno. When he's like, yeah, the furniture, it's like human furniture. I forget.
Oh, you mean you can kind of form yourself into a chair?
A person can form themselves into furniture. I'm not saying it's great or recommended, but you can't turn into like a white vapor. If you're dressed as a cloud and you say, I'm a cloud, people are like, okay.
You absolutely can turn yourself into a white vapor. It's just you won't be alive anymore.
You can't turn yourself into white vapor. You can turn yourself into white smoke.
Okay, wait a second. There must be a chemical reaction possibility here. Become a white vapor.
To turn yourself into only... Well, but you'd have to get rid of a lot of stuff first. Like, you could turn the water into vapor, but even then, it might not turn into a cloud. I don't know. This is weird. Yeah.
My point being that gender identity is something we've agreed is a thing,
right?
But being an inanimate object, even if you identify yourself as an inanimate object, other people will not,
may not,
socially agree with that identity, right?
Gotcha.
So there are some that we consider more objective than other ones, right? Gender identity is a bit more. Are we saying that's subjective, right? Whereas it's more objective on whether or not you're a cloud.
Which one's more subjective? A cloud?
No, subjective.
That's objective.
That's objective. Whereas gender identity is more subjective, right?
Right.
It's your self-identity.
Yes.
In that regard. And it's actually upon you to express that to others so they know what your identity is.
Yeah.
Right. If you don't express that to other people, they're going to use whatever cues that they have in front of them to kind of determine what they think that your identity is. Now, that's a huge, obviously, topic of conversation about whether you can say what somebody else's identity is or not. And okay, I've gone too far down that path.
You can guess, but you can't say with any, let's not.
But gender identity obviously is one of the identities, and that's a big topic of conversation right now. But we're talking about cultural identity and social identity in terms of how we identify relating relationally to other people. Like I identify as a brother.
Right.
I am
and a son.
Yeah, but that comes with weight to a lot of people. Like to be a son, there's like weight in there. There's a sense of responsibility. I'm a son. I owe my parents this, and that.
But you don't have that.
Well, I only have one parent left, so it's half my identity.
Right.
You're still a son. I mean, that everybody is a son, technically, right? Not everybody's a husband.
I'm not a son.
Everybody is a son or daughter. Or not necessarily. I guess
so.
Not if you don't consider yourself. Okay, now we're going back to gender identity.
Don't even. Just like, it's fine. A son or daughter or other. So yeah, I mean, I identify as a daughter, but it doesn't seep into everything. But like when I'm around that's another good example. When you're around certain people, you can almost feel a different age. I always feel younger around my parents because I almost like revert back to my...
You identify as a young person. Okay, so relationally, when you're around older people, you identify as a younger person. And when you're around younger people, you identify as an older person.
Yeah.
That's true. And if you're around ugly people...
I don't see ugliness. Yeah.
I just wanted to see what you would say.
Yeah.
Everybody's beautiful. Yeah.
Okay. No, I don't know. I see myself as one of the gang. If only I could do something about my Jewish nose, that'd be better.
Oh my God. You have we all have, it's all very, again, even that in itself to say it's a Jewish nose is kind of,
I know.
That's the more...
I know. I'm not supposed to say that.
Racist thing?
I'm just contributing to the problem. I'm contributing to anti-Semitism.
You're not contributing to it.
My nose is. Sorry.
I have a question for you.
Okay, great. Let's hear it.
Why does identity matter? And what happens if you don't have an identity or if you lose an identity?
That's a great question. So why does identity matter? I think identity is part of the thing that makes us feel like a person. Like there's some part of my identity that goes from when I'm a baby to when I'm an adult, even though, and I think I feel like we've mentioned, was it the Ship of Theseus?
The Ship of Theseus?
Yeah, I feel like we've mentioned that multiple times on this podcast. But
I don't know about multiple times,
okay.
But I do remember talking about this, and I think it's such an interesting thing to talk about. Can we remind people what that is?
Yeah. So the idea is, if a ship, so let's say the ship leaves the dock, and in the process of the ship's lifetime, all of the components of the ship have slowly changed. Is it the same ship at the end?
Yeah, it's got a new sail, it's got new boards,
whatever
it's
the
got a
parts
new deck.
Name multiple boat parts. Is it still the Ship of Theseus, or is it a completely different ship?
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of what identity is the thing that keeps us feeling that we are the same over our lifetime. So like, even though the cells in our body change.
Oh, because it's true. We are like that in a sense. All of our cells grow and die, right?
Our cells change, everything changes. And like, so this psychologist, Erik Erikson, who talks a lot about identity, talks about story as identity. So the story that we tell ourselves about our life is an important part of how we form identity and how we see ourselves and our place in the world. So like, it helps to situate ourselves in each of our relationships, in the world in general, in work, all of those things. Having a more stable, or having some sense of self, is what helps us function in the world, really, I think, in a practical sense. And in a more philosophical sense, it gives a continuity to our life.
Yeah, so the continuity thing is, I like that. That's a big, I think that's important there, to feel that sense of continuity. And also, I think another big one is the sense of belonging.
Oh yeah, that's important. Great. Yeah.
You want to know
where you belong.
Who's your people?
Yeah.
Yeah, who's your people? Where do you belong?
And that can be good and bad, but yeah.
Yeah, it can be, because sometimes, and that's what we talked about a little bit with deliberate doubt, I believe.
Right.
In terms of, once you identify as something or someone, then you identify with the whole group and what their beliefs are as well, and that can be bad. Mm-hmm. It's important not to make certain things your identity just because you're a part of them.
Right.
Or just because you're there. Like, you might vote for one party or one person, but that doesn't mean you have to now identify as someone who votes that way, because depending on what changes in the world, you might vote a different way, but now you're inclined not to because you've already identified yourself as someone who votes that way. Yeah. And you're part of that party. Even though that party might change, you've identified yourself. And that's kind of fallacious, is the word fallacious?
I know what fellatio is. I don't know about fellatio.
No, that's very different. But, kind of, I think it's a fallacy.
Oh, like F-A-L-L-A.
Yeah.
Right. Not F-E-L-L-A.
Yeah, you're making a mistake sometimes identifying yourself as something, and it's not really the thing. And I think we were bringing that up a little bit earlier, where it's like you accidentally identify yourself as a Republican instead of the thing you actually mean to identify yourself as when you went and voted that day, which might be someone who cares about lowering taxes or something, whatever the thing is that actually your identity. Yeah. But you've now wrapped up your identity in something bigger, more encompassing. And that can cause cognitive dissonance when some of the groupthink that comes along with that identity isn't what you actually think. And you have to kind of try to match that, or you pull away completely to solve that cognitive dissonance.
Right. And like, what about, so kind of coming back to your idea of being an actor and a writer and all this stuff, and a screen, whatever else you are, filmmaker. Yeah. Is there a limit to how many things you could be?
No, I don't think there is.
Or like, do you have to be paid to consider yourself like, can I just be like, yeah, I'm a dancer, even though nobody pays me to dance? Like, I do it, but...
My point is, my belief is not the same as Tamara's and Jacob's was here.
Okay.
I'm very adamant about this, and we had a long, respectful discussion about this. But I feel that whether or not you're a good actor or a good writer or a well-versed...
You're not saying you're a good actor, you're just saying you're an actor. Yeah. Yeah. No one's saying you're a good actor.
And then even if you... Yeah, no one.
What an asshole. See, I'm an asshole. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
But that's also subjective. Yeah. And I do think it's a bit more like, basically, whether I'm an actor, is that a self-identity thing, or is that something that other people can join in on to tell you whether you are?
Well, what does IMDb say?
It says I am.
It says you're an actor. Yeah. So
yeah, because I have. But do I need IMDb to do that? If I don't have IMDb for school plays. Also, is acting in a school play, does that count as being an actor?
Well, no, I'm not an actress or actor.
You don't identify that way.
I don't think anyone would identify me that way. I think they'd be crazy.
You don't identify that. If you told other people you were an actor, everyone would see you as an actor, right?
No, they'd be like, what have you acted? And I'd be like, nothing. And they'd be like, did you study acting? No.
Do you intend to be one?
Do you intend to be one? No. So in no way am I an actor.
So there's a whole bunch of evidence that doesn't support you having that identity, is what I would say. But there's evidence to support your identity. So if I say I'm an actor, I can support that with I want to act.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you that. I have acted.
Mm-hmm.
I have acted in professional things. I acted since I was a child. It has also this level of whatever, in my life for what I am doing today. So those are things I think you can talk about, evidence to support your identity in a way. If people don't, I don't want to say believe your identity, but they don't
accept.
Yeah, they don't accept your identity, or some people, and that's what I don't like. I don't like the gatekeeping of other people's identities when it comes to things like that.
I think if you didn't consider yourself a filmmaker, nobody would deny you as an actor. I think because you're a filmmaker, they're like, you can't have both, man. Like
lots of people
you
do.
get to be a filmmaker who's sometimes in his films. Lots of people.
So what is Clint Eastwood?
But wasn't he an actor first?
Wasn't I an actor first?
He was a well-known actor before he got to film make.
Is well-known what matters in being a thing?
That's a good question. I guess, like, recognized. He was recognized as an actor before he did anything else. And I think most people would still say he's an actor. If you said, like, oh, Clint Eastwood, the filmmaker, people would be like, isn't he an actor? Yeah, but he's also done this and this and this. Oh, okay, I can see how he's also a filmmaker or whatever. You know what I mean? But he's an actor first. So you're a filmmaker first is what people want.
But being something first does that mean that's my identity forever and ever and I can never be something else?
No.
We talked about it being changeable.
But it means that you do have to, I guess, like, you're right, there is some kind of gatekeeping, but I think that gatekeeping is more because of the other things that you've done as opposed to like what they think an actor should look like or should be.
But that's the problem. I think a lot of people it's a perception issue, and I think it's a lack of nuance and perspective, right?
Everything's a lack of nuance.
I'm very against gatekeeping that stuff, for identity and everything, gatekeeping identities from people, right? I guess I'm gatekeeping your identity as a chair a little bit.
Yeah, you are.
But because I think that is a lot more objective. But objectively, I
acted as a chair in an elementary school play too, and you won't accept that I think I am one. I'd be a better chair than this chair. Stupid chair. My back hurts already.
I think that some of these, it's because we're not identifying as something so simple. To a lot of people, an actor isn't someone who just acted once. It encompasses a lot of things, but that's a lot more subjective what it encompasses. At which point do you achieve being an actor versus have been an actor versus someone who's acted in something. And so I'm a big fan of, if it's something that you identify as and you've done and maybe you intend to do, or just that you've done enough, at least, and not just something you talk about doing, then I think that you can identify as that thing. And I don't think anyone should stop you from identifying as that thing. I think that you asked about how many different identities we can have. Yeah, I think we can have like unlimited identities,
right?
But we're not really talking about I think we prioritize certain identities, and then other people prioritize certain identities of us as well. And I guess I would ask you, like, what are your most important identities?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
What are the things you most identify with? Like, we know that you're a woman. Is that one of your top identities? You want everyone to know you're a woman, and that's a big, important identity for you, maybe?
I don't really know. I don't care.
What about being Jewish?
I don't know. Depends on, well, what... some aspects of being Jewish.
Important for what?
Yeah.
It's important for your own like sense of place, maybe, and belonging.
Yeah, for my own sense of place. Like, I don't need if nobody identified as Jewish anymore, I'd be like, okay, that doesn't really change. I mean, I guess it would feel weird.
I think it's a huge part of my identity, and that's the weird thing. Whether or not I feel like I believe in all the religious stuff.
Do you believe in the religious stuff, Josh?
Or are we talking about religious beliefs? We're talking about identity.
Religious beliefs are part of identity. I have it written down here as one of the...
It can be, but my point of what I was saying is whether or not I strongly identify with being Jewish. Strongly. And I realize that part of it is because of I'm so invested in, we went to Hebrew school, and my family was murdered in the Holocaust, and I'm invested in, the state of Israel because of that and what happens there. I'm invested in my Jewish communities, because there's one in LA, there's one in Canada.
You're even saying this in a Jewish tone.
Because I'm Jewish, because I talk like I'm invested because I sound like it, because that's I was raised in this way around people with a sense of humor. My friends have rabbis for parents.
Yeah, it's part of it, but it doesn't feel like something that affects me day to day as much as or that I need to be a part of my day to day. Please don't tell my mom I said that, though.
So is it a problem for you that she identifies you, or it's not she, but other people identify you?
She's upset that I don't identify more.
That you don't identify more.
As I don't care about I don't do any of the religious stuff, or I don't feel.
So your identity is important to her because her identity is wrapped up in your identity because she's your mom.
Yeah.
So our identities can get wrapped up in other people's identities, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Look at that. I brought up a good point with my weird family dynamics.
No, but it's true. We can get wrapped up in other people's. I guess the simplest way of this is if you see yourself as a husband or a wife and your other person stops being married to you, then they don't have that identity and therefore you don't have that identity anymore. And that might be an important, or even like on a more sad note, if you see yourself as a father or a mother and you lose a child, are you still a father?
Yikes. You just took a dark turn. Oh, man.
Well, are you still?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't want to take away those people's identity.
That causes a bit of an identity crisis where you still feel like you are, but it's kind of like I used to act. Weird comparison, but yes, it's darker, but I think we're talking about different forms of identity, right?
Yeah. What's your top identity, Josh? What's the one you can't do without?
I don't have one I can't do without. I think that I'm an amalgamation of a few important ones, and I do allow for certain amounts of change. And it's so interesting. I identify as an empathetic person, but is that an identity? It kind of is to me. I identify as a Jewish person. Is that my top identity? No.
What's your top?
I identify as a filmmaker. I identify as a storyteller. Storyteller is one of my identities, even more so than film, because some people.
I think that's your top one.
I don't know.
I think because that's an encompassing one. Because in storyteller, you have actor, you have writer, you have filmmaker, you have whatever. All
neuroscience person. But being a neuroscientist or something used to be more of an identity for me. And everybody else identified me as that. And it was interesting. I was treated differently too when I was identified as someone who did that. It was a different,
like people assumed you were smart or something.
Yeah, they assumed I was smart. And now that I'm a film person, they're like, oh, he's dumb, he doesn't know how to make money, which was always true. My identity evolved, it shifted, but it's not that it became one instead of the other. It's that I prioritized my filmmaker identity over my neuroscientist identity, my psychological identity.
It's like those word clouds. Do you ever see those word clouds? So actually we had to do this as an assignment, and it was something that this teacher does with her own students. And like you put in the things that you feel you are into like a word cloud, and it ends up being a word cloud of you. I had a really hard time with it, I will say, because I'm not like that. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like,
Here, I can tell you a bunch of things you are.
All right, let's hear it, Josh.
Woman.
Ugh. That's not my top, though. I'm not like, I'm a woman. I am a feminist.
I'm just telling you what you are.
I would be more feminist. I would identify more as feminist than as a woman.
I also identify as a feminist. I guess it's not near my top, but it's not at the bottom either.
Yeah. I guess I must. I just don't care. Like, I don't think me being a woman necessarily informs everything that I do as much.
You care about being a feminist. That's a big.
I do.
It's a big part of your identity, feminism.
I do care about that. Yeah.
So okay, you're a woman. You're a feminist. I'm just telling you what you are. You can tell. You can order these. Okay.
Okay.
You're a Jew. It's under feminist, probably.
How dare you? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, that's fine.
But it's above. Is being a Jew above or below being a woman, or is it equal to you?
I don't know. Both of those are pretty like ingrained. I think being a woman affects more of my life than being a Jewish person.
Yeah, but in terms of being as your identity, though.
I think being a woman is more.
Okay. Being a teacher.
I mean, yeah, but like if I didn't have to teach, I'd be like, okay, I don't know. Like if I had something else.
Would you stop identifying yourself as a teacher if you stopped teaching?
Some part of me I would still consider a teacher. That was always something I wanted to do.
Okay, so it is.
I used to line up my little stuffed animals and be like, today we're going to learn about this.
Oh.
Yeah, so cute. I know, right?
What about being a dancer?
Yeah, you know what? That's actually a big one, because I thought about this and I was like, if I got like an injury, because I've been getting like these little kind of small injuries, and I'm like, what if I couldn't dance? I would feel like, I think I would have an identity crisis because, and I thought about this too, because my mom has like chronic pain from a car accident, and she can't do, like, she was a gym teacher and she was like very athletic, and she couldn't do a lot of those things afterwards. And I think it super affected her life. Like it does in a daily, like I'm in pain all the time way, but it also does in like I can't do the things that I used to love. And I think that would be a big problem for me, especially because I've like newly kind of renewed my love of dance. So I'm just like,
and you did that because you didn't want to lose. That was such a big part of your identity.
Probably.
You were having cognitive dissonance probably when you weren't dancing.
Probably, yeah.
You were like, I identify as a dancer,
probably,
but I'm not dancing right now. I need to start dancing to help match what I feel I am.
I agree
with that, right?
I think that's a big one. Yeah.
You know, for me, that's why I have a fear of like going blind.
Right.
It's such an important part of my identity. Is I don't know, you can still tell stories and be a storyteller without that.
Yeah.
But it's a huge, I like to also, it's a visual medium for me too. If you, we were talking about like what happens if you lose an identity like that.
Yeah.
It's a death. in a way, right? Like I used to think,
yeah, it'd be really hard.
Wow, I have to literally, a part of me dies and there's a new life starting if I can't be one of my top identities.
Right. I agree. I feel, and I think that's important to know because sometimes some change in someone's life can take away, just like you were saying with someone identifying themselves as a father and losing them. Like
Yeah.
that's, I know that's not the
Yeah.
same, but it's like that's more extreme, but it is huge. You lose a part of yourself.
It's huge. That's why it's that was like their top identity.
Yeah.
A lot of people, that's their top identity, being a dad, being a mom, being a parent, and then losing a child. It's like, how can they don't just identify the act of literally having a child as that, but being a dad or mom kind of means being a good one. They identify as that. That means I'm good at raising a kid.
I'm a cat mom. I'm just kidding.
And people have lost a child that then conflicts with that identity. And they're like, what kind of parent am I? What kind of person am I?
Right.
And that gets in the way. I think something that we're onto right here is that sense of, that's why identity is so important to people, because they ask, who am I if I'm not this?
Right.
And the problem is when people wrap up their entire identities in really bad things, they may not even mean to at first. But, there's people who've given themselves to the Catholic Church, fully. That's their identity. They are part of it. Everything about them is part of that. And then it turns out that, let's say, the priests are touching little boys. And I'm not saying that's happening everywhere. No, I'm just talking about.
But let's say that it probably is.
No, I'm saying the incidences where that happened.
Most places.
It's very hard to then go, oh, this is bullshit. I don't think I want to be part of that, because everything is so wrapped up in that. It's
community is wrapped up in that, belief systems. Like it's not just.
Look at it this way. If you're a rabbi and you've spent your whole life being a rabbi, and then some big piece of scientific information or something comes out basically negating everything you've been teaching students and learning, it's unlikely you're going to be like, oh, never mind.
Yeah.
I'll be another identity. That's who you are. You will find whatever way to solve that cognitive dissonance. And I think that's kind of the downside and negative side of identity here, is that you want something. You were talking about continuity. You want it to be consistent, but things change. And you need to be able to be adaptable. And it's maybe better to have, it's up to you to kind of prioritize identities that can last forever. Like if your only identity is being a football player, well, football players, like if you're smart, like retire at like 25, like, right, or whatever it is, like very young. But it's not smart to wrap up your whole identity as being a football player, because you're going to have an identity crisis really young, because you can't do that all your life. If you want to identify as somebody who has a lot of friends, that's something you can do. Although I kind of identified myself that way. Yeah. And then I had a bit of a crisis when they found out that I put off those people, and I thought I was good at this.
Turns out no one likes you.
Turns out no one liked. Don't worry, I remember being bullied.
Oh, that's so sad, Josh. Yeah.
Everyone's lying to me. That's what my brain started telling me this. Everyone's lying to me.
Oh, no, I'm not lying to you. I tell you the truth, I think.
I mean, you could just be lying.
About telling the truth.
Yeah.
But I identify myself as an honest person.
Well.
So I would have a difficult time intentionally lying.
Unless you did that, I think you would also identify yourself maybe above that as somebody who leaves a positive impact on another individual. And you might want to prove that by lying in order to help this other person feel better.
I would only we've talked about lying. I don't know that making someone feel better is always the best course of action. Like, if I thought that telling you the truth would help you in the long run, even if it hurt a little bit now, I would totally do it.
That's what this other person told me. That's what they said. I think it's better to tell you this so that this doesn't happen to you again. And I think it would be in your best interest. And maybe they're right, but it hurt. It was hard. It was definitely very hard to hear, because I definitely identify as somebody I've worked very hard on being someone who's good socially, and well,
then why do you talk so much, Josh? No, you know what, so I'm serious. And
that is such your sense of humor, by the way. You do that. You've done this before, and I kind of love it now, where you're like, oh my god, this is the perfect opportunity to just needle them right into the insecurity as a joke. It's fun. And then be like, I'm just joking, obviously, and I hope you understand it, and I'm such a bad person, I can't believe I said that. But then like it may stay with me, and then you wonder about it, and you'll probably panic and feel anxious about it slightly, but not as much.
And then later I'll be like, I'm really sorry about that thing I said. But I've done that so often where I apologize about a thing that I said before, and sometimes people don't remember. Although,
I mean, I just did that.
I'm sure you'll remember this.
I messaged you to apologize.
Oh yeah, that was funny. And it was funny because I know you. I feel like I know you well enough that like, okay, so this is how it happened. I had gotten a call from you fairly late.
I felt so anxious about this.
You don't need to. You really don't need to. So I got in a call late, and I was like, oh, I don't have time for like a phone call right now. Like I'm tired. So I hung up. And then the next day, within like 24 hours, I get another call from Josh and I'm like, okay. And I had people over. So I was like, oh, and they were like, oh, someone's calling you. And I was like, oh, it's fine. It's just Josh. Hung up. And they're like, oh, poor Josh. I was like, oh, no, it's my like podcast buddy. Like it's fine. Like, and I was like, he did call. And Joel was like, well, didn't he call yesterday? And I was like, well, yeah, I'm sure it's fine. Like, if it's something important, he'll message me. And then I explained to these people who don't know you that you were probably, I said, he's probably just driving. He has something he kind of feels like telling me. And he's just like so excited. He doesn't even realize that it's been 24 hours. It's probably not even the same thing that he's calling me about. It might be. But he's not like, oh, I need to call I again. He's probably just like, I'm in the car. I have time. Boop. Like, I know him. It's fine. And he won't take offense because he doesn't want.
I mean, you're correct about all of this. Which
I know I am.
Makes me such a simple, sad person in this way. But
no, you're not simple. It's just like, you're very genuine. Like, I just know that you just genuinely wanted to tell me about something. And then you called again and I didn't answer because I was like, it's late.
But that was actually a different thing.
Okay, but whatever. It was within the same evening. So now this is 3 calls within 24 hours. And then you text me.
I had 3 very long drives that day.
Okay, there we go. Yeah. Yes.
But you didn't know that or care.
I didn't
just
know
like
that.
in the middle of your thing, yeah.
And then you text, hey, do you have a quick minute to chat? So I'm like, okay, maybe something's wrong. So I call. And it's like, I'm going to be honest, like, I don't really talk on the phone past 11. I'm not really like most people don't. Yeah. I know you don't like, and I know I'm like, Josh isn't doing the math. He's not realizing that
3 hours difference.
Yeah. And then you're telling me like anecdotes, like not anecdotes, but you're telling me about like, well, the thing that you just told us about the MRI a little bit earlier.
Well, the MRI. Well, although you thought something really serious happened, because the first thing I said was, well, I just had my MRI. You're like, oh my God, no.
I thought something happened. Well, that's the thing.
And you're like, oh, it's just a funny story.
And then it's just like stories. And I was like, Jesus Christ, Josh.
No, it was actually the other story I wanted to tell you, which I don't want to get into.
That's an even less interesting story that I care. I care even less about that.
Oh, that's actually more, to me, that's crazy.
Face.
That was like
no, you know what?
It's not my place to talk about this right now, this podcast,
yeah.
but
no, I don't care less about that, I should say.
Somewhat of a serious thing that happened to a friend of mine.
No, it's crazy, but I just wasn't in like the headspace for that. I thought it was like something affecting you.
Well, I
didn't think it was like a life thing. It is a little bit affecting. I'm sorry.
In a way, it was affecting me. I didn't really get to tell you about this, but I guess no one knows what we're talking about right now.
Yeah, it's fine. We'll talk later.
It was affecting me because it led to me trying to be supportive about this thing and then getting attacked. I was getting attacked online.
Oh, okay. So I didn't know all that. Also because I was like, okay, bye, I'm tired.
But I still didn't need to tell you that right now. I didn't need to tell you that day.
Okay.
I was just
exactly.
I thought you would find it really like crazy to hear about.
I did.
And I was like, Aya would find this.
Under any other circumstance, I would have. But because you had called me multiple times, I was super tired. I was just like, he just messaged, do you have time to chat? I'm like, oh man, maybe he's not okay. And I'm an asshole who doesn't answer.
Oh no.
And then you messaged me the next day to say sorry. And I'm like, oh, like,
I'm the boy who cried wolf.
Mad.
I cried wolf with my calls. I'm gonna be calling to Sam dying. You're like, he's not dying, and you're just gonna not pick up.
Well, I won't answer, but yeah, I think we should just have a code for like it's actually something serious, as opposed to I really feel like telling you about a thing. That's what we need.
I actually have this issue now more and more, and I think I've bothered other people with this too. And it's now I have to identify someone,
and they probably just don't tell you.
No,
because
no, it's true. Now I have to identify someone who calls people all the time. And in this day and age, people like it less and less. But I am very frustrated with texting.
I get that.
And I also don't mind when people call me. Like, so I often treat others.
You should do voice messages.
I hate them.
Voice messages on WhatsApp are great.
No, I hate them because I screw them up and then I can't, like, I panic.
But who cares? Do you screw up a phone call? You just talk.
Yeah, but in the moment, I can change what I'm doing and saying or be like, I didn't mean that. But in a voice message.
You can do that on a voice message.
Not in the same way. You have to kind of, it's a message. You leave it, you send it as the thing that it is. Anyway,
all right, I think you just need to rethink how you identify voice messages, because they can be just as messy as a phone call.
Look, I have to start identifying as someone who reaches out like this, and I probably irritate people all the time. For everyone listening who gets phone calls from me, I apologize. I do get really excited, and also I drive around so much in LA, and there's such a lack of efficiency in that by itself that I like to combine that with like
you should listen to podcasts.
Touching base with, I do that too. Okay. I touch base with, again, I drive around like 40 minutes minutes here and there at a time.
Yeah.
And it's just easy to be like, let's touch base with this person about that thing, or spend a time to meet about this or that. So then I'll call, but the person often, if they can't answer, they won't pick up. And I can't send them a message saying what it was about.
Right.
Because I'm driving.
Oh, I see.
So they just get calls from me.
Yeah, I'm one of those people.
And then when I'm sitting at home by myself, I generally don't care to call people. Like,
oh my God.
I do other things. So
here I'm telling everyone you're a nice person, but
no, it's not that
I think I get it. I get it. It's all good.
Yeah. Anyways, I brought this up to skewer myself a little bit.
But please don't, like, you don't need to what yourself?
I'm skewering myself a little bit.
No, this is something but you don't need to.
To be honest, I'm ashamed.
Innocent.
Yeah, but I'm ashamed that
there's such a childish
it comes off as like
innocence to it.
Yeah, but it comes off as autistic. It comes off like I'm autistic.
Josh.
No, being autistic is all right. But me, I'm basically saying that I'm lacking social cues.
But aren't you a little?
I think that I'm maybe ignoring them over I'm prioritizing other things over them in a moment when I get excited.
I think you're so in your own head sometimes that you have a hard time seeing how you come off, as we all do. We all do. I think you just have like a lot of thoughts and emotions that are all like boom, 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 boom. Also, not to diagnose you, I don't think you're autistic. I think ADHD. You definitely have ADHD though. Yeah. I can't believe you haven't gotten a diagnosis for this yet.
A lot of people think I am. It's true. It's true.
As someone who knows you, I'm not a psychologist. I can't really diagnose people, but ask your dad. Isn't he forensic psychologist?
Right? I mean, but forensic means he can tell me whether
Is he forensic psychologist or psychiatrist?
Psychologist, but he's taught as well in psychiatry at universities and stuff. Okay. So he just doesn't have a medical. To be a psychiatrist, you have to
right, yeah,
go to medical school.
I just didn't remember if he was a psychiatrist but he's Dr. Lippman.
I mean, he can tell me whether
is he Dr. Lippman?
Yes, he's Dr. Lippman. He can tell me whether or not I'm a psychopath.
Yeah, I think we already know you aren't. You keep talking about how much empathy you have. I mean, I guess that would be a good cover. For
I think the lady doth protest too much, and I'm the lady.
You're the lady?
Yeah, I doth protest too much, perhaps. Perchance.
Yeah.
Oh, I have so much empathy. I don't want to.
Yeah. Oh, I see.
I'm clearly a psychopath. That took way too long to get across.
Could be. It took a while. Also, I was thinking about how like I wasn't like, yeah, I'm a woman. I just don't feel like. I mean, you know what? If someone took that away, that would be confusing.
Do you have any identities you're ashamed of? Now that we talked about mine?
Well, none that I'm going to share here.
What do you mean? I just skewered myself for I don't know how long, and everybody. And the worst part is people listening. It's not something everyone's learning about. They're all going, "Yeah, he does that," like that.
Well, people who don't know us are like, "Oh, maybe I don't want to be his friend."
Yeah, he'll call me,
or maybe they do because they'll be like, "Oh, someone to call me." Sometimes I'm happy to get a call from you. Doesn't happen often, but sometimes I'm like, oh, Josh, that'll be fun. I'm just kidding.
It's also different because we talk so much that it's like I don't need another call from Josh.
Well, we do talk a lot.
But also, I like to call you outside of the podcast so our entire conversations are not just recorded conversations.
Right, yeah. But sometimes we really have hilarious bits that never get on air. I think we should record our conversations just in case.
But then they won't be as hilarious, probably. There's probably some sort of rule.
Well, no, because we won't plan on posting them, but...
What are you ashamed about? Tell me. Be honest. Here, come forward. You're an authentic person.
What am I ashamed of? I can't even think of anything.
Like, what's an identity that you may be ashamed of? What is something that you identify as that maybe you don't want to?
I mean, maybe being a cat lady, because like I do love it, but I also feel a bit of shame. But that's not my own shame.
Isn't that like you leaning into it a little
societal shame? That's society's shame.
There's nothing wrong with being a cat lady.
I agree. So maybe that's not real shame.
Also, it's the word cat lady that has other connotations to it that you don't like.
Exactly. It does. Yeah. Anything I'm ashamed of? No.
You see the bunny?
I'm great. Yeah. I did. I've seen the bunny the whole time. It's very cute.
Oh, it's very cute. I'm not a bunny man. Gentleman.
You're not a bunny man?
Bunny gentleman?
Bunny gentleman?
I don't know what you call it.
No, you don't get to be... dudes don't get those kinds of labels because you guys like...
We get other labels.
It's fine. You're allowed to be like older and you get to be like a bachelor. We get to be like a cat lady, you know?
I don't know. We can be like a pervy man or I don't know. There's all kinds of weird identities.
Like a stubby-legged man?
A stubby-legged man?
Yeah, it can be that.
Is that a man thing?
Oh.
Is that attached to men?
I don't know.
So is that your biggest? That's your most shameful identity?
No. Let me think. Joel just came in, so let me just say hi to him. Oh, hi. Okay, I guess I said hi.
I guess you said hi.
I don't know. Ashamed. Like, what do I have to be ashamed of? I haven't done anything wrong.
I'm not saying you do.
I guess being a bully.
Oh,
is that
we come full circle?
The one we already talked about. That's kind of the shame one.
You're ashamed of it, or you're worried that it is an identity and you don't want it or then you sometimes try to lean into it, but then you're like, I shouldn't lean into it, and you get a little bit.
Yeah, all of that you just said.
Yeah,
all of those things. If it call me, but Yeah.
Yeah. So we all have those things.
So like if I'm mean and I'm actually hurting people's feelings, or people are like, oh man, all that stuff she says is like, what? Like she thinks she's being funny, but it's really mean. Like there's some shame associated with being identified as a bit of a bully, I guess, sometimes. Although, yeah, that's about it. I don't know. I'm sure I'll think of lots of things after. I didn't think of it. I wasn't like sitting around thinking.
No, I think that one probably makes sense for that. I mean, for me, we were saying, I'm talking on the phone. The real thing for me is that I feel shame about it. I worry as part of my identity is being someone who talks too much.
Right.
I just talk too much. It's not necessarily that I talk about myself too much. I just talk too much.
Well, that's like, another one that we had from early on. Like
from grade 2.
What was it? Motormouth and Yakety Yak Ross Littman. And we keep bringing them up too.
We do, so that it like cements the identity for me.
Like reinforces it. Yeah.
Like it tells me, hey, this is who you were as a child and this is who you are now because you cemented it.
I think you should just embrace it. I think like it's part of why you're so prolific is you have a lot of thoughts and they flood through and they just pour out, and that's okay.
Honestly, if I could just say I'm ADHD, it like helps me. And then a lot of people, it's like more digestible for everyone. He's not autistic and he's not someone who doesn't pick up social cues or someone who talks too much. He's just ADHD. He has a thing that causes him to have focus issues, and that's why. And I guess it's kind of I almost want...
I think you super do. Have you looked up the...
I almost want that identity to help with the other stuff, but I'm worried that that's not the reason.
Well, I think you should get diagnosed either way. Also, even just like look up, like, you might have ADHD if, like, some of the things that they have are
you think I haven't?
You have.
You think I haven't looked this up?
Like time blindness, like your messed up schedules. But like, how do you not think you have that? You definitely do. You definitely do. I
didn't say I don't, but I also don't. It depends. Like I have friends who do have it.
Like you don't want to use it as an excuse. Is that what you want?
I don't want to use it as an excuse. I mean, I want to.
But you would find some relief in finding it as an excuse.
But it feels inauthentic, especially when I feel like it doesn't seem to... I've looked it up. Of course I have. And some of it doesn't. Sometimes yes, sometimes... I can't just say I was late because of ADHD. Like you can, but I don't know if that's the reason.
The way that you're making, I don't know. The way that you're making it sounds like the way I looked at myself with anxiety. Like, no, this is my personality. It was almost like I didn't want to see it as like an excuse.
Jacob has been telling me forever, Josh, you need to get on Adderall. Like he was like,
I don't know that you need to get on Adderall, but I think like
it changes your life.
There are ways to,
yeah.
I mean, maybe, but it might not hurt to try, but I'm not saying like you have to. I'm just saying, why don't you look into it? What's the harm? What are you afraid of?
You know, I never know where these conversations are going to go. I can't believe our identity conversations took us all the way to this. I'm going to bring us back to something you promised we'd touch on before you left.
Okay. Yeah, I forget what it was, but yeah, bring it back. What is it?
Your identity is a Jew.
Oh, okay. What about it?
How do you feel about that today versus when you were a child? And do you feel cognitive dissonance about it?
How do I feel about it? I think as a child, it was more like it was easier to accept every part of it. Whereas now, because I don't really believe in the religious part, I
feel like you closed your door so that like your parents wouldn't hear, even though they're not there.
There's probably some sense of that, even though they're not here. Yeah. Yeah. And because like me not identifying enough as Jewish religiously has been a source of tension and like discomfort and conflict in my family, it makes it a problem, even though I guess it doesn't need to be, but it is constantly.
I mean, I remember your mom teaching, I can only imagine for you, she taught me in grade 7, 7th grade, as they say in America, you know, Jewish values and Judaism in our Hebrew school, you know, gave us advice on life. And I feel cognitive dissonance when I don't live up to things she taught me in class.
Yeah. So I
can only imagine
being her daughter.
Yeah. And again, all respect to your mother. I think she's wonderful.
Yes, she is wonderful.
And she was a great teacher.
I agree. And I love her very much. And she's amazing in many ways.
Well, we're just talking about our own beliefs today. Versus what, you know, it's also because if I didn't respect your mom, I wouldn't feel the cognitive dissonance that I do.
Right.
It's because I have so much respect for her. And I'm sure the same for you.
It was easier when I was a kid to just be what I was told I was. Whereas now, because I don't believe in it, I don't want to do like the religious parts, but I do want to do the cultural things sometimes. And I do identify as, if someone said you're not Jewish, I'd be like, fuck you. Yes, I am. Which, why?
Yeah.
I don't know. But, you know, it's something.
But that immediately, that's a strong reaction because you do identify that way.
Right. Yeah, I do.
In fact, you almost feel like you need to identify that way too, because who are you if not, kind of a thing.
Yeah. And I think I've just redefined what being Jewish is to me.
At least that's a kind of a healthy thing to do, I think, when that happens. instead of...
Yeah, so I embrace more of like the humor, like Jewish humor. Great. Most comedians are Jewish. Great.
I have friends who do that and they're not Jewish.
Well, they don't get to. No,
I have a Pakistani friend and I'm like, dude, you're way more Jewish than me, just based on humor alone.
Yeah, being neurotic. No, I'm just kidding. That's
something.
There's some shame there, I guess, too. But yeah,
the Jewish neuroticism
and like being, I guess, like quote unquote an intellectual. I don't know if I'm an intellectual, but there is like that part.
You're fairly intellectual. Yeah, we care about that. Education, intellectualism.
Yeah. So that stuff I'm happy to embrace.
Yeah.
And incorporate in my identity. But like, the traditional stuff that makes no sense to me, or like that I actively dislike, like the women who have to dress modestly and any of that stuff, or like, I mean, everybody do what you want, but like don't tell us what to do. Like when I went to Israel on birthright, I had to like we would go into certain places, and it was the same in like most religious areas. Like, so I actually was given like something to cover my arms or my shoulders because I'm showing too much skin. Like, fuck you. And like the men are dressed like the same as they always are. That's bullshit. Like, I hate that stuff. Or like all that's...
I mean, to be fair, the men are covered in black clothing,
ultra religious, but like generally they're not.
Black hats.
When we went into like an old synagogue,
you're right.
They weren't told to put anything on. Like, it's just us. We're women. We're supposed to be ashamed.
Modesty thing, yeah.
I know that's not. I'm oversimplifying it, and I'm sure someone would be like, "Well, actually,
no. I don't want to.
The meaning
that's
of
your
this."
actual
I'm sure there's
experience.
a whole bunch of stuff, but that's how I feel. I feel like it's not a healthy. And I remember like once I went to synagogue when I was younger, and my mom was away for some reason. I put on pants and wore them, and like when she found out later, she's like, "You're not allowed to do that." And I was like, "Oh, I don't know. Abba said it was like, my dad said it was okay. I guess he didn't realize like you're not really supposed to if you're a girl, because he was, I don't know, he doesn't know.
God's upset.
God's pissed.
God doesn't want you to wear pants. I relate to that in many ways, not to the...
How do you feel? How do you feel your whatever has changed? Same question, back at you.
No, I relate to that. I try not to get like viscerally angry about stuff, because I think, I don't know, I do. I more and more, I think that I was afraid to like say things that almost like brushed up against my former identity. I still identify strongly as a Jew, but I had to also recontextualize that and redefine it.
Right.
And there are still people who go, "Josh, you're religious, right?" And I'm like, it bothers me. Why do you think I'm religious? And they're like, "Well, didn't you go to Chabad?"
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah.
But you do that as a community thing, right?
Yeah. And also for learning, and also to keep my mind open about all kinds of things. And I try not to judge, and also to respect other, those beliefs. I say others' beliefs, but they were also like my beliefs, or things I wanted to believe, or I was open to believing, less and less so now, right? Depending on whether I think they can be damaging in some ways. But I have to also reconcile the fact that I went to Hebrew school for a third of my life, or maybe it's a fourth now.
As you get older, it'll be less and less. Don't worry.
I went to Orthodox synagogue, and I had an Orthodox bar mitzvah. So I remember one of the reasons I'm working on this TV show that involves the world of Orthodox Jews. I remember thinking, you know what? I have all this knowledge.
Working through your issues. Oh, or that, yeah.
I have all this knowledge, and I'm not putting it into being religious.
Yeah.
Why don't I put it into storytelling?
Right.
And then it's like I learned all this so that I can better tell this story that I want to tell, and actually address some of my own conflicts with this stuff in that show. Yeah. And suddenly it all becomes meaningful, because one of the things that our identity does is it gives us a purpose. And I think everybody wants to feel like they have a purpose, and that's very tied into their identity. And if their identity shifts, they sometimes lose purpose, or that feeling of purpose. And that can be very dangerous, because a lot of people wonder, why should I be alive if I don't have purpose?
Right, definitely. So like identity is not just who we've been, but who we want to be, and what we want to do, and how we want to give meaning to our life.
Exactly. So in terms of, giving us purpose.
That's a perfect place to end, I think.
Yeah.
This has been another episode of Adulthood Friends. If you enjoyed this, please follow us wherever podcasts are listened to. Wherever you listen to podcasts. The usual. I really got to nail this ending down. It hasn't happened yet. This was episode 60 on identity.
60.
Thank you for listening, and follow us on Facebook, and we're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Audible, other things.
Also, if none of those, I'll just give you a call.
Or that.
During the middle of the day.
Josh can just call you, and you can have a live podcast with him.
And I'll live podcast you, which is kind of apparently how I talk.
Just send your phone number so Josh can call other people when he's driving.
That's how I talk to you anyway, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You plural people. See, I'm trying to lean into it now.
Yeah. Go for it. Lean into it.
It doesn't fully help.
It's okay. It'll be okay. And how do we usually end this thing?
How do we usually end this thing, Aya?
I don't know. Maybe you can make a phone call to one of your other friends to talk through your issues.
No, what do we usually do at the end of this podcast?
We usually are talking, and then the music kind of just...
Do you identify as a podcaster?
No, sounds douchey.
What? So just the way it sounds.
That's content creator?
Ugh, I mean, you are. You've made 60 episodes of a podcast.
I feel like you've made them and I've just come along for the ride.
What do you mean? You're engaged in every single one of them.
Yeah, but I mean...
Are you ashamed?
I mean, you do all the editing.
Are you ashamed of that identity?
Well, I just feel like there is something like very not self-involved, what's the word? Self-indulgent about podcasting.
You have a love-hate relationship with this, don't you?
I have so much to say. I'm just going to share it with the world. Yeah, I do have a love-hate relationship.
You do have a lot of things to say.
Like, I don't tell anyone I have a podcast. I tell almost no one, and when I do tell them, I regret it quickly, like soon after.
Oh my god!
Just like telling people I'm writing a novel, like it's just like an act.
Is it a guilty pleasure for you?
I don't know that I'd call it that. I feel like it's a thing that I do that sometimes I don't want to advertise.
Maybe you should embrace it. You should embrace that identity. I've tried to embrace it.
Well, I will, but I've never been a self-promotional person. It's perfect. It's a very good working relationship, Josh, because you can do that because you recognize that it's necessary. I also recognize that it's necessary, but I won't do it. So
you secretly identify it as it.
Sure. Yeah, I secretly.
As a podcaster.
Not so secretly, because now I'm announcing it.
That was my goal.
But only to people who are already listening, so it's okay.
Only for people who are listening after the music just played.
After the music, yeah.
All right, Aya, that's her top identity. She's a podcaster.